This is the GGJ Podcast, a show about the games industry, the people who make them, and the communities that grow up around them. I'm Susan Gold, a game education trailblazer and one of the founders of the Global Game Jam. Each week, we sit down with a new guest, highlighting their own path and journey. This is a space for honest conversation from makers about creativity, collaboration, failure, and the messy, the beautiful reality of making games. So whether you're a young dev or seasoned, an educator, a student, or someone who just loves games and the people behind them, welcome to the GGJ Podcast. Take a breath, settle in, and let's hear directly from the makers themselves.
This podcast is made possible in partnership with the Global Game Jam, the world's largest game creation event, bringing together creators from around the globe. A big thank you as well to the Global Game Jam's headline sponsors, Epic Games, Games for Change, and Xsola, for helping make this creative community a reality. To learn more and to get involved in upcoming jams, visit globalgamejam.org. This episode is brought to you in part through the support of the University of Miami School of Communication and the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation. Their commitment to storytelling, media innovation, and community engagement help make conversations like these possible.
In today's episode, we're going deep with Jenny Xu. She's a long-distance runner, a Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree, and the CEO and founder of Talofa Games, a studio that uses games to make movement more fun. Jenny has shipped more than 10 mobile titles with millions of downloads, won Niantic's Beyond Reality Developer Contest, and is pioneering a new kind of fitness game with Run Legends and Monster Walk. We talk about how a painfully shy kid in Cupertino becomes a prolific solo creator, what happened when an early startup almost broke her confidence, and what it takes to build a career at the intersection of games, community, and health. We also get into ambition, burnout, and why support system matters just as much as your portfolio. Hi, Jenny. Thanks for joining me.
Yes, thanks for having me, Susan. Very excited to chat today.
Where are you talking to us from today? Did you go on a long run today?
Yes, I'm in San Francisco, so it's very, very close to the ferry building, and I do this 8-mile loop that goes like straight from my house, close to the Golden Gate Bridge, and then I come back. So
You go all the way down to the Presidio?
yeah.
Whoa. You are a runner. When someone outside of games asks, what do you do? How do you introduce yourself these days?
Yes, it's a good question since we combine the fitness and the gaming aspects. But usually, when people ask me what I do, I say I make movement more fun. It's, or I think people tend to pick up gamified health or gamified fitness really well and kind of quickly pick up, like, oh, you mean like Pokemon Go? And it is cool because Pokemon Go and Niantic were the company that kicked us off. So it's the quickest thing that they can compare us to. And we can say, like, yes, they kicked us off. Other things I usually mention is I use games to make people move more. That's also sometimes what I share with people, and they kind of perk up and ask, like, how? And that's where I share more about the games we make.
Awesome. I wonder, you became a Forbes 30 Under 30, and so people associate you with, oh, she's so successful, all these things. But really, how do you want people to associate your name? How do you want them to think about you? This is your story.
That's a great question. And the whole reason why I am making games like what we're making at Talofa is because I want to make a difference and I want to do something different. So even just trying to make games that touch that intersection of mental health, physical health, it's creating a new genre or category or just space for more of these types of games to exist and to share that this can work. You can make stuff that feels magical, gets people to move, and that are things that people have never played before. So that's why I would love people to see me kind of less for the success and more as an inspiration to make games like the ones we make at Talofa, because I wanted to play more games like the ones that we make. So if we are seen as pioneers in a new category, or at least like pushing the whole space forward, then it would make me feel like the time that I've spent founding this company was worth it.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm going to go back a little bit and start at the beginning. Where did you grow up, and where was your life like at 12 when you started making games? What sparked this idea that you could create games, not just play them?
Yeah, yeah. I grew up in Cupertino, which is in the Bay Area, and I actually grew up a very quiet and socially awkward kid. So at 12, I was extremely introverted to the point of only speaking in one word sentences. So people would talk to me and I would say, cool or okay. And that's about it. I was known as being like a really quiet kid that happened to be fast at running. That was one thing that was true, is like my feet spoke louder than my words. I was setting school records in the mile. Like I got a 5:30 mile in 6th grade. So I always knew I loved fitness even at 12, but I didn't know how to talk to people. So with that came an abundance of time, because where kids would usually socialize, I found myself reading a lot of manga, watching anime, like consuming internet content. And at some point, it turned from watching, reading manga, playing games like Pokemon to actually drawing Pokemon. I was really into a game called Neopets, and that segues into making games and more myself taking on more of the creative role, because the way to be famous in Neopets from the Neopets community perspective is to get published in the Neopian Times, which is a
Oh,
comic strip that was like the New York Times, published weekly, but on the Neopets site. And my favorite artists were always posting every week. At some point, the idea sparked of, can I get published on the Neopian Times? And I drew my first comic strips at age, I think, 11, even before I got into games. And then when I got my first strips published, just really started feeling like this was a place that I belonged. I didn't belong in the real world yet, but I belonged in the digital. So that community aspect really helped me think I can do digital art. And that was the spark that eventually led me to learning animation, different animation programs like Flash I used to make my comics first. And then I realized you can make games with them. So then it was a very kind of slow transition into making games instead of just comic strips for Neopets.
and did you have someone teaching you these tools, or did you just explore and find them yourself?
Yeah, I really found a lot of these tools just online. Like stackoverflow.com was my friend. I was very chronically online. So it was like a bit of a self study program. I didn't take any computer science classes until my junior year of high school. So from 6th grade to, to junior year of high school, I was just self learning. And it was because I was just so motivated to continue to feel that sense of belonging online, and the validation I was getting from people loving my comics, people loving my Pokemon fan art. That joy it brought me is something that I think really kept me going.
It's really interesting. I don't think at that age I would have wanted to share anything I made. That's just one of those things that it's really, when you're young, to put yourself out there, really hard. Most people age 12 would be running the other way, but it's a different generation. I think that you grew up in a time where you were looking at other people and you were emulating, but you were just doing it a lot better.
Thank you. I do think the thing that really helped was that I had an alter ego online. I didn't like who I was at the time. I was like the odd kid, the weird person that never talked and that people didn't want to be friends with. And online, I was this more extroverted, social person who was very loving, very excitable, very expressive, like shared a lot. Nobody knew that it was Jenny Shu, the creator. It was Chibi XI or Chibishi was my name. And it was very unclear if I was a guy, a girl, what my gender was. So it was all anonymized. And that gave me some of the strength to step into a version of me that I would say now I've actually become. But at the time, it was two different selves. The very sociable, fun online presence, and then the real version of me that was not yet there.
It's interesting as I I'm known for my network, right? And one of the things that nobody knows is that I was scared to death to go out my front door every time. And so I had a book and it would tell you like how to work a room and I would just
Mm.
flip through the book and be like, okay, I'm going to do this. And that's how I would function. I would go and I would just do that. But I kind of want to just let people know and understand by the time you're in your early 20s, you've made over 100 games, right? You've done
Mhm.
multiple apps and you've had millions of downloads. And that is something that, how do you explain that level of ambition and initiative in hindsight, of course?
Yeah. Yeah. At some point, making games was just very addicting. It was like a game in itself. The most prolific period was 12 to 18, middle school to high school. It started with every day I'd turn around a new game, publish it online. So I'd draw, program, write, market, email creators, like all really without knowing how any of this worked and just trial and error. I think what really drove me was actually the love of the craft. I liked blending and experimenting with things like horror, comedy, dating sims, even stories and world building, and like creating complex characters that had unique motivations. I'd say what really kind of drove me to keep doing more and more and more is just my first games maybe got 10 views. And then at a certain point, like some of them just caught on fire just overnight. Because I was posting almost every week multiple games, and some of them would just hit the top page of deviantart.com. And I thought, oh, if they're viral online, maybe I can take them to mobile. And then when I put 10 of them on the mobile app stores, some of them started generating revenue. And I didn't make games to make money at the time. I was making games because it was so fun. And that going viral felt like validation of who I was, that I deserved to make games or I deserved to
Oh,
be there. And when those mobile games started making money, I had this kind of seed of a thought of what if I could do this forever? Is this actually an actual career? Because I didn't know anyone in games. I thought it was like a career everyone aspired to have, but it wasn't actually like a real path. So it was, I'd say, the first signs that this was something more than just a world to escape into, like an alter ego to be, but my real career was computer scientist.
I love how you created opportunities for yourself. But do you feel that pursuing a degree gave you some sort of advantage? Did you have a very big push to go to school from the family, or was it
Mm.
more that you thought it was necessary?
It actually felt more like school was the only option because gaming was just the fun thing on the side, the hobby. Even my parents didn't take it very seriously or didn't really think it was a big thing that I was doing up until they saw the amount of money it was generating. But it was always like, oh, this is a fun thing. Like you paid for college with this money. Now get a real job. And that's what everyone in the Bay Area, especially the Asian families, like you're all pushed down the pipeline to be like an engineer, especially. So I always saw it as my only path. And I would say the other thing was doing the college recruiting pipeline for a while for sports, like track and field, cross country. Pretty much from the time I did my first season of track and field, colleges were sending me letters trying to recruit me because I was winning championships. I was doing better than a lot of my coaches thought was possible. And there were some very fast people on our team, but I was definitely in the top. So the whole reason for sport was to get recruited to a good college and then to get to study somewhere. And it just felt like it was everything I was doing was a stepping stone. Even games was like a stepping stone to get into a good college. So there were like multiple reasons to go, and I am very glad I did.
Oh, I'm glad you did too. When you started early in your career, you had that alias, and nobody knew that you, like you said, you're a woman, you're a
Mhm.
man. I don't want to say you hid behind it, but when did you start to feel comfortable to work without an alias?
Yeah, it's actually funny since I had the alias up until junior year of college, where the way I got outed or I linked the identities was actually because of Forbes 30 under 30. I actually wasn't telling anyone. Most people knew me in college as the runner Jenny. And I was okay with that and nobody knew I made games. And then kind of out of the blue, I remember being in algorithms class and getting an email that said, "Hey, you're on the Forbes list." And I was like really confused, like what that actually meant or if people actually cared. And basically, what happened was that like Reddit articles came out being like, MIT student on Forbes 30 under 30. Like people were texting me saying the list got published and you're on there. And at the time, I was 19. And by the
My
time they
God.
published the list, I was 20. So it was like Forbes under 30 for me was like a bucket list to do by the time I was 30. And I was
Well,
sitting there in the classroom at 19 like, oh, what what happened? So it was just this moment where I was almost forced to become a more public figure, despite wanting to hide behind like alter ego. And that's actually when I started meeting more people in the industry and starting to realize there's thousands of people behind the games I play, or hundreds at least. And the kind of it was good. It was good timing because I actually think that's what I needed, the integration to actually become like who I am today as CEO.
wow. So there you are. You're making these huge breakthroughs. Bigger doors start to open. What's happening in your life then?
I would say like the Forbes 30 under 30 thing gave me the confidence to start going to things like GDC and asking the question, what is it actually like to start a studio? Like I am at this point starting to question whether software engineering is actually the path I want to take, because it felt like a now or never thing of if I don't do games now, I'll get sucked into like a Google and stay there and just never explore what could have been. And I do think the learning how to network was like one of the most painful things because I was still learning how to make friends. I was looking up wiki how articles of how to be at party in college and seem normal, how to hold solo cup and throw away alcohol to seem cool. I was really learning in the background how to be a normal human. And it was watching channels like Charisma on Command, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I was like memorizing line by line, like use the person's name, point your feet towards them. Like it was like a set of instructions that it
Oh,
was
I
so
absolutely
grateful.
know. I totally do. I like I told you, I'd flip through that book and I'm like, I'm gonna do that. Wear your name badge opposite your shaking hand. Okay. Like that was
Yeah.
like all I could do because I was meeting people that were famous.
Hmm.
I didn't feel like I was that significant. So you have that feeling. And then there you are. They're like, who are you? You're on this list, right? And you're like, I have
Hmm.
to explain myself.
Yes, yes. Definitely. Lots of hiding in the bathrooms as well, or like getting overwhelmed to the point of just sitting there for 10 minutes and amping myself up. I still do that to this day.
I think that a lot of people will empathize with you there. I've had students who get nervous just answering questions in class.
Hmm.
So I understand that like putting yourself out there is huge. And I truly am appreciative that you're here on the podcast. And I'm glad that you've overcome so many of those things. So did winning Niantic's Beyond Reality Developer Contest right after graduation, how did that opportunity come about?
Yeah, yeah. It's actually a very fascinating story because I was at a point where I decided not to go into a game studio directly. And I had joined another company to be a co-founder right in my senior year of college. So I graduated early to join that company. And then it didn't end up working out, where I just realized I really didn't like working there. So I left, and it was at the time that all my friends had already gotten full-time offers. So I had both given up on the dream to do a studio full-time at that point, and also just left the first thing I graduated early for. I had moved from Boston to Portland and thought I'd be in Portland for life. And kind of 6 months later was going back home and kind of defeated in spirit and body, and really just felt like I made the wrong move. I should have stayed in school. I missed party semester. My last year of college was just flying back and forth from Boston to Portland every week and just working on a new company. And just coming out of that, I was incredibly defeated, and my self-confidence was probably at an all-time low. I was also weight-wise like at the heaviest I'd ever been. And that was when the Niantic thing happened, was when I was at GDC. Actually, I didn't want to go because I was embarrassed that, and when people ask me how things are going, I'm like, everything failed. Everything I tried failed. I had such a high expectation of how my career would go because of my early success that I almost had this ego problem of, I am just a child prodigy who can never fail. All my games get better and better, and then kind of first thing I do out of college is fail. So then I had this moment of, what if I am actually just a fraud? I peaked in high school because I got lucky and I'm not actually that good. And just somebody I talked to at GDC happened to be at Niantic. Her name was Ninian Wang, and I knew her through a college program I did. And she told me about this contest and introduced me to another person at Niantic who ended up being her game design mentor, Laura Warner. And there was 3 days left to apply when they told me about it. And it was already extended from the original deadline. So it's kind of this moment of, I am so defeated and depressed right now that I could do this, but am I really truly qualified? And on paper, I was not. If you looked at the requirements for the Niantic contest, it was like you need a team of 3 to 5. I had one, just me. I didn't know anyone else. I could tap. And then they said 5 years of Unity experience. I had 5 months. It was just on paper, everything was not checking a box. So there was a real moment before I sent in my application of, I am just not qualified. I should just not do this because I am not going to, this is going to be an embarrassment. And it was actually my parents who told me, you should apply, it just doesn't matter. So I did. And that's where everything started. Was I put down 2 people. I lied and said my dad and my brother would do it with me without asking them. And then we got in, and I had to tell them, sorry, you're legally obligated to do this with me now.
That's
It was
amazing.
very, very lucky.
By the way, Dad, I didn't know if you know this, but you're a game developer now. I love it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do. But I also love that you had the family support. That is something that is hard to put a price on, you know?
Mhm.
So you win this contest. It's $300,000. It's a lot
Yes.
of money. You have your brother, you have your dad. How do you build a team? Where do you go? How do
Mhm.
you decide that combining fitness and games is really going to be your focus and your niche?
Yeah. And I'd say to your previous question too, it was a moment of redemption for me, of building that confidence back up, and just felt like okay, maybe I didn't lose it. Maybe I do got something in me. And it was a moment of decision because it was a $300,000 cash prize with no strings attached. So it was just a blank check, and I could have just pocketed that, like a ton of money to start with as a 22-year-old, 21-year-old, really at the time. But I think it was really never a question for me to whether or not I should save this money or spend it on a studio, because I just felt like finally I was allowed to do gaming again. This 300,000 was not my $300,000. It was $300,000 of a pre-seed round to try and invest in my own thing. And because we had won the contest with a running game, a game that combined my love of running, a social game, I just thought, might as well keep this going. Like, we won the contest, we should see it through. And that's actually where the team building started. Because the moment I started thinking we're an official studio and me and my dad are coming up with the name, signing the docs, it dawned on me that if I really wanted to make a studio, I probably couldn't do what I wanted to do alone. The scale at which we wanted to make this first game, which turned into Run Legends, was way too large. I would need voice actors, I would need artists, I would need more engineers, and I couldn't do all of it myself. It became the catalyst to go from lone wolf, no one works with me, I'm just solo, to okay, I need to start hiring contractors. I need to start finding people to work with, but I don't know how to manage anyone. I'm still younger than anyone I'm hiring. And that whole journey of being a manager started there.
Yeah, because you're learning while flying. You don't know what you're supposed to be doing, but you kind of
Mm-hmm.
have an idea of what you want to do.
Yes, yeah, yeah. All of that on the job learning. Yes.
So it's not just a side experiment anymore. You convince the world that you can do something like this. You create a fitness battle game essentially in Run
Mm-hmm.
Legends. Did you market test? How did you go about making something like this when it's something that never existed before? How
Mm-hmm.
do you go
Yeah.
about doing that?
Yeah, it was a lot of if I look back honestly, I do think it was selfish, a lot of the motivation of wanting like a running game to work, since it was the two parts of my identity that I was trying to force together and think like, wouldn't it be great if I could work on the things I'm passionate the most in life on in the form of a game where I'm uniquely kind of somebody who can make this as a love letter to the things I love. So some market testing was done, but I would say I was actually quite naive and didn't really know what the point of that was at the time. I just really liked playing what we had. I would play it with my, at the time, it was like ragtag team of me and 5 contractors, and that became me and 17 contractors. And then I think at our peak, we were 22, and I was unable to manage everyone. But for some reason, everyone was telling me this was a good idea and that it was a fun game. And I was like, okay, then we should definitely make it. And I had, like, side tangent, was raised some money off this idea that we were doing something so new, innovative, and different that it was worth putting. I mean, now it's like $6 million into, but it was just this hope that because I just was somebody who loved both of these things, there was going to be a market for this. And I know now, even in going from Run Legends to Monster Walk, the market testing, more validation testing, beta testers, all this are good to have even sooner. But we got lucky. We made a game for ourselves for Run Legends, and we tested it, but I'd say a little later than in the life cycle than the games we make now. And it was just because we loved it and loved playing it ourselves.
When you're trying to share your vision with other people, like if you were to recruit someone for your team, what are the
Mm-hmm.
things you're looking at? Because that vision is really the main thing holding together your studio.
Yeah, I do think and believe that everyone at the company who's joined has joined because of the mission. Just like what you said, is they believe, and what I share is just the true passion I have for the stuff we do. I really truly love making games, and I also truly want to build games that are good for people, not just entertaining. I tell people, like, my dream is getting emails from players that say that we've changed their life. And how nice would that be to get emails like this daily? And now we do. We get reviews like that all the time. But it's just that thought of, if one player out there changed their life because of something we created, can we do that at scale? Can we make a new genre of game that, like, maybe these people have tried everything that exists and the only thing that works for them is Run Legends, is Monster Walk, and we can do something special because we're game developers first and fitness health enthusiasts second. versus the other way around. There's a lot of apps out there, but not enough games. So that's what I sell. And people who really like that come on board and they're willing to be different and experiment and go against the grain.
When you think about success and what that looks like and feels like for you beyond downloads and
Mhm.
revenue charts, how do you measure?
Success to me is impact. It's seeing the number of steps. Like I think in the first 2 weeks of the game launching, there were like a billion steps taken. And it was just knowing that players taking 14,000 steps daily on average. And it's like the reviews, the 5 stars that say, I never thought I'd be an athlete, but I feel like my young self again. That's the success to me, more so than the downloads. It's just the knowing that we've changed something. And like I've seen some decks from companies that reference us. And
Oh,
that is also something that is success to me. So I'd say I'm actually very much more motivated by the social impact. And like for example, Unity gave us an award for social impact, which was like our first impact award ever. And well, featured on the App Store is great, which we've gotten a few times, but it's just like so different to be awarded for the change you've made than for revenue, downloads, numbers.
I love that feeling. I know that feeling.
Hmm.
um, so you didn't get here all by yourself. I mean, you were a lone star, but you had mentors and people that
Hmm.
were really important to you. And you referenced your parents. And who else were your champions and your mentors and the people that helped you along the way?
Yeah, truly too many to name. I would say like the first two really were Kate Edwards and Rachel Bernstein, because my first gaming event ever was some very, very small conference in Sunnyvale where they just happened to have two people come in that were in gaming. And they just happened to also both be women. And in my eyes, I just didn't know anyone like that. And I remember handing them a piece of paper where I printed out my business card, but it was like too large. It was as large as an index card. And I handed it to them. I was like, take my card. I'm like, I really want to be you one day. I want to be in the industry. And probably the first thing I remember hearing that was mentor like was Kate Edwards telling me, hey, you keep saying that you're an aspiring game developer. You can just own it. And she's like, you've already made hundreds of games. Just say you are a game developer, not you're an aspiring one. And that still sticks to me to this day because I was always introducing myself as I want to do this in the future, and just stepping into and accepting that this is who I am is probably one of the more powerful switches in framing that I've remembered. So those are probably like my earliest memories of mentoring.
And now you actually are a mentor. What do you see when you look at their faces and you listening to them that you feel that not that you just can contribute and help them with, but where are their deficits? Where are you seeing things that,
Mm.
gosh, how can we help them?
Yes, I see so much of my old self in some of the people that I mentor and help. I'd say the biggest mentoring thing I do is the DICE Scholars Program. And it's 4 or 5 of us who help these like 12 students, early career professionals. And they are so bright eyed and so passionate and so excited to meet their industry heroes. And I think now when I look at them, I see that same insecurity of I don't deserve to breathe the same air as this person, or I don't want to waste their time. And I think when I look at those people, I'm just thinking of how I help. I wish I could just implant I was you not too long ago, honestly. And just that shared awkwardness, the you can't live their journey for them, but relating and saying everyone goes through this phase and super normal to feel like you don't belong here, but I'm here and I'm a friendly face. If you want to just hide with me, I'll be here. I feel like that has gone further than saying, I'll introduce you to this person, I'll you can read this book, you can watch this channel. I think just the friend is what I found is really helpful for a lot of these earlier career people who are not even feeling like they deserve to be in a room.
I always find that so hard to digest myself, but I even have on my door before I walk out the door, don't forget, you're
Mhm.
Susan fucking Gold, you know? Because everyone has that feeling of insecurity at one moment or another in any given day. And
Mhm.
the fact that you can see that in them and then you remember that in yourself and you know that what's kind of going on in their heads. The one thing that you have had that I am not recognizing a lot, and some of the people that I've been teaching, was this lack of ambition. And you have a tremendous amount of ambition. But your relationship with ambition has kind of changed from the time you were 12 to the time you were 19 to now a seasoned
Mhm.
28. How do you look at that difference over time?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think about this a lot. I would say at 12, the ambition was I found my community and I just want to make him happy. I don't want to let them down, or I want to make him laugh, smile. That I think was the purest intention and the purest ambition. And then I'd say at 19, it was I really want to make a studio. Like, I really want to be in gaming. I want to be a CEO. I want to do this thing that I love as long as I can, or I want to prove that I can do it. A lot of it was imposter syndrome and the need to prove that I was as good as my high school self. I did feel like I was living in my high school self shadow because somehow when I was young, I had made so many great games. And like from 19 onwards, Run Legends didn't make as much money or get as many downloads as even one of the games I made in high school. So it was this need to prove myself. And now at 28, I actually feel like a lot of that has shifted again, where I want to go back to the purity and the love of the craft, where I feel that I've now established myself more as a mentor. But now my ambition is more around, can I create a great team? Can I create team culture that produces great things? Because I myself have created great things on my own, but how much more fulfilling is it to do it together with people you can celebrate with and go through hard times with? Like, how do I have fun making games, not needing to prove myself, not needing to best my high school self, and with people instead of doing it alone in the dark at a time when I have friends, I have everything, family, a partner, and it's like I'm making games for the love of it now. Yeah.
That's what I wish for everyone, to do the thing that they love the most and be happy at it. What habits or mindsets from running and coaching have helped you to manage your stress, your doubt, and that pressure of being a leader, of having to be on, of having to share ideas and vision? It's a lot.
Yes, yes. I do think being an athlete was very helpful and also sometimes hurtful, but the most helpful mindset I would say is definitely the pace yourself or treat it like a marathon, not a sprint. Because I know from running, I guess like 5 or 6 marathons hurt and they are very long. By the end, I feel like I've been running for a lifetime, and knowing that I have to intentionally hold myself back at times at the start to make sure I have enough energy for the end. I've learned that I cannot be always on. I need to make space for myself to rest. Not being busy all the time is not a sign of success. It's actually a way to burn yourself out. I do not work all the time. I have time for social friends. I get good sleep. I treat my body like an athlete does, or I get 7 to 8 hours a night, work out every day, eat healthy, because the work is hard and the work is long. And I would say the other thing is I have, as an athlete, always really pushed myself mentally and just stayed in the suck, because I know if I stay in the suck long enough, the runner's high will happen. I will find my rhythm, even if it's painful for a bit. So I kind of remind myself that like day to day. So I think about that a lot when I'm learning new things, going through new challenges, doing taxes for the company. Like all these are
All
not
the fun stuff.
fun, but necessary. Yeah.
But the stuff that has to be done.
Yes.
When you start to think the future, you think 5 years from now, will we still be around? 10 years from now?
Hmm.
When you think of that intersection of games, health, community, all of these things, do you still see yourself being at the forefront of that? Do you want to be, or do you have plans for, total world domination?
Yeah, yeah. I honestly think what we do with Talofa, like health, gaming, community, is just living who I am. It is just my identities combined, and there's power in that integration that I don't think I would want to even remove a piece of it. So it kind of feels like if there is one thing I've been put on the earth to do, it's the intersection and just continuing to find ways to innovate because the definition of health, games for good, all this is very vague. It's broad. There's so much to explore, and I do think in 5-10 years, if you were to talk to me again, I would just love to still be saying that I'm experimenting, innovating, doing stuff that's actually good for the world, good for people, whether it's mental health or physical health. It's a large spectrum, but it's still something that I'm passionate about enough to put all of myself into because like on the side I used to do fitness instruction, which is kind of like gamified fitness. So it's I don't know that I would be into world domination as much as just continuing to be creative and doing stuff that people look at and feel inspired by. I feel like I would still want to be at the forefront of making new genres, new stuff, experimenting with new tech. So yeah, maybe more of the same. More of the same, but much wider audience and with much more learnings under the belt.
I only wish that for you. I really do. Now, if a young developer were listening right now and they were thinking, I want to build something in a completely new hybrid space, very similar to you, what are some steps that you would take to tell them, hey, listen, in your first year, think about this?
Yes, yes. I definitely would tell them to start finding a mentor. I do think that was the first step I took. And it wasn't even mentors, is what I realized. It's just friends. And I used to go from saying, can you mentor me directly to people to just saying, let's catch up again, let's stay in touch. And just those natural, organic relationships, some of those are still now, yeah, 7 years strong. And I think those people kept me in the industry at times when I wanted to leave. So I'd say first, good support network and people who are close to you, but not too far ahead, like a founder who's maybe at Series A, Series B, or a peer who started their company at the same time. Sometimes those friends are the best to have. So I would surround kind of with people like that. And then I have a very robust mental health support team, psychiatrist, therapist, life coach, executive coach, and just like setting up those systems in place for the moments I know will be tough. And then I found a lot of accountability and support from joining accelerator programs or things like the Niantic contest that have structure. And it just like X month program. You pitch on this day, and that practice of doing things on a deadline. So that practice also helps. So it's three communities. It's like your mentors, your peers, your mental health support network, and then your kind of structured company accelerator. I think that's like how I would start my journey.
That is fascinating. I would have definitely guessed the mentors and the peer network, but the rest is really good information to work with. Thank you. When you think now, as we're doing your oral history at 28, and we're thinking of the book of life, your life, right? What
Yeah.
chapter are we on? Are we like still in the first act? Where are we?
I don't think I've ever been asked this. I do think I'm at the part where I'm starting to live. So maybe I'm at the end of the first arc. Talofa is the first arc. It feels like I've been the last 28 years learning how to be human, a friend, a girlfriend, a daughter, and a sister, and finally found a way of being that is just being myself, like being authentic after trying to be some version of me that I thought LinkedIn might like or other people might find likable. So it's kind of the arc where I'm letting myself live a little and not just see life as a race to success. That is really how I lived a lot of my early 20s was if I'm not the most successful person in my entire friend group or I'm not the most successful person at my age in the industry, then I don't belong here. And that competitive thinking was just too much to handle at a certain point. This year, I've like finally broken out of that mental model through a lot of help and intervention. And now am finally every day happy and excited and curious. I feel like a completely different person now where I don't have an agenda. I mean, I do have a plan, but I don't have something that I think if I don't achieve X, I'm a failure. I feel more open to possibility of what may come now.
That's beautiful, truly. I love that, and I'm so happy for you. And I think just hearing from you that you've had a lot of years of experience built into such a short amount of time that very few people can say that they've had that experience. But if you were to leave listeners with one thought about your ambition and your resilience and finding your own way, what would that be?
I would say ambition is not worth sacrificing yourself for because I thought I was resilient enough to kind of take anything. And the life of a founder was just about resilience, but resilience to the point of sacrificing everything: mental health, physical health, sanity, morality. I was like, all goes out the door if you want to be successful. And I've just learned you can be ambitious and be kind to yourself and still achieve your goals. And I no longer put myself as the last priority. That's probably the one thought I'd leave people with is can you still prioritize yourself and your ambition? I do think slowing down is sometimes the solution rather than going fast. Ambition doesn't always look like late nights and at whatever cost. It can look slow and intentional. And my chi healer, they're really funny, started going to chi healer this year. They told me slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So that I've been mulling over for a while. That is what I'd leave people with.
I'm going to say that's one I've never heard before, and I love it. Now that we're winding down, where can people find your work? Where can they connect with you, the games, and how do they follow you and what you're building?
Yeah, so Monster Walk and Run Legends are on Apple and Google Play stores, so they're free and you can play them anytime. We have a active Discord and social media for the company, but I'd say for me personally, I'm on LinkedIn under my name, but best way to reach me is my email. So jenny@talofagames.com. And I read all my emails. So definitely the best place. And I post a lot on LinkedIn about the journey. So that's probably the best way to follow along.
Well, I really appreciate your time today. I've loved getting to know you, about researching your background, about seeing your tremendous success. And I really appreciate you sharing that personal side of that experience with us. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Susan.
Want to get involved with the GGJ podcast? We'd love to hear from you. Please send your ideas, suggestions, and questions to ggjpod@globalgamejam.org and tell us who you think we should be talking to next, what stories or issues matter most to you about the future of games, and help us highlight the people and practices that make a sustainable creative life in games possible. Thank you for spending time with us on the GGJ podcast. If this conversation sparked something for you, please share it with someone who might find it useful. And don't forget to follow along so you never miss new stories from makers around the world. You can find more episodes, resources, and information about the Global Game Jam at globalgamejam.org. Catch us on Substack and on YouTube and anywhere else you find podcasts. This has been the GGJ Podcast. Thanks for listening and keep making games.